Good morning. So glad to be with you and already receiving the many blessings here. I have a reading which I'm going to read twice by attributing to Ascending Wanderer. I am the breath between stars, the pause before dawn. Through me flows the quiet knowing that all is connected, that no heart is ever truly alone. To all who wander in shadow, may this light find you like a seed finds the rain, gently, persistently, until you remember you too are the pulse that moves the cosmos forward. So I'll read it again and then we'll just breathe together and be that pulse in each unique individual way together. I am the breath between stars, the pause before the dawn. Through me flows the quiet knowing that all is connected, that no heart is ever truly alone. To all who wander in shadow, may this light find you like a seed finds the rain, gently, persistently, until you remember you too are the pulse that moves the cosmos forward. Thank you for your participation in this glorious dance of life.
Unspoken joy in passing north, and so I wait for this precious moments I hear all that could never be said, and right here in this holy silence I find God, I find myself. In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release from a world full of chaos and noise. And I wait for these precious moments I hear all that could never be said, and right here in this holy silence I find God, I find myself.
That would be a beautiful place to stay for quite a while. Thank you. Let me introduce our guest speaker today. Her name is Reverend Catherine Linesch. She's a Unitarian Universalist community minister, and she is affiliated with that congregation in Reno. She joins us from Reno today. She's been lead minister in 3 congregations and has served as spiritual care and bereavement counselor in a number of clinical settings. Reverend Catherine loves music and the arts and sings in the Reno Philharmonic Chorus. Someday we'll have her sing here with us. Her talk title today is A Form of Healing Prayer, Focus and Release. I invite you back to the platform.
Thank you so much. I'm going to see if I can do this. Do you think I can? There. There. Because I need my hands. So it's just so good to be with you every time. And thank you for inviting me back, because I just really enjoy being here. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share with you, to receive, as I already have so much today, and hopefully add something to your life in some way or another. So I wanted to highlight a dynamic by the humanist psychologist Lawrence Linesch. Is this mic okay? Is it working well? Okay. Have any of you heard of Lawrence Linesch? Just let me know. No, awesome. I mean, you will today. I'm also just kind of curious about those of you who work either in counseling or in the healing arts, either professionally or non-professionally, any of you who do that kind of work. Yeah, you don't have to be a professional, just maybe a student, we're all students, right? So there is one aspect of his many teachings that I'm going to highlight today. It's called informally focus and release. Focus and release. And so anyway, Lawrence Linesch was born in 1920 and he lived for 100 years. I always think that's pretty amazing. Like he did something right about life, right? In his, that kept him going. He was a psychologist, educator, and author of many books. In the 60s and 70s, he conducted extensive research in what was then a controversial field of parapsychology. In books, The Medium, the Mystic, and the Physicist, and Alternate Realities, he investigated similarities between quantum mechanics and mystical thought. Now, this is kind of well known to us today in a way, this coming together. But at this time, he was really an advocate for giving a form to mystical experiences and patterns and capacities that humans have. So in the world of the paranormal, the next frontier, Linesch advanced these ideas further, claiming that psychic abilities such as telepathy, clairvoyance, and precognition can be explained using quantum theory. So he was, in a way, ahead of his time, but I like to think also that he was ancient in his perspective, because he really studied people and dynamics that were operational before the rise of science as we know it, or scientism, and identifying principles and practices that have existed for eons. So I really admire his work. One of his most popular books is How to Meditate, which describes the process across multiple traditions and has been a guidebook for many people. He studied how to meditate and took it out of religious realms and spoke of dynamics in the humanist psychologist way. So it's accessible to people who were having reactions to religion at that time. It's still useful for those kind of people today. So anyway, so now I switch gears a little. That's just the intro. It had been a difficult decision for me. I had studied a smattering of healing arts and become certified as a masseuse. And I became then an involved lay leader in a church. I had received the call to ministry. I had pursued the healing arts as well. The call to ministry and the search for me was and is always for an integration of mind, body, and spirit, both in myself and in holding that space as best I can for others who are willing to move into this integration as they are able. When I found Starr King School for the Ministry at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, I spoke of my dual path of healing arts and ministry. And I wanted to see if I could be at home at that school. And I was told by a few people that ministers had always been healers. It was only the era of the Enlightenment that split us off into specializations and different departments. So they welcomed the whole of me at that school. And I was encouraged to hold these things together. In so many ways, seminary was an academic pursuit, which wasn't bad. I loved that. But I seeked out classes on prayer and spiritual direction. I found kindred spirits in other students. I joined together with a couple of my colleagues and student colleagues, and we taught a class on the healing arts because you could get credit for teaching at my school. That was called Healing, Wholeness, and Holiness. I had the great pleasure of, I had this job when I was in seminary of being a literary escort, and I had the great pleasure of meeting Larry Dossey, who wrote the book Prayer is Good Medicine. Larry Dossey, MD, and he was like, most people don't understand this. And I was like, I do. So that was fun to be able to spend time with him. And again, these things are much more accepted now, but they weren't so much then. So I heard of a United Church of Christ minister, Francis Geddes, who was at the Fairfax Community Church in the Bay Area. And he regularly led a healing service. I attended his healing service and engaged in prayer and the laying on of hands. I wanted to see how this was done. Of course, it's done this in the Episcopal Church all the time. They have specific healing aspects of their services. But this was a little different, and I really loved it. And then I signed up for a healing retreat led by Reverend Geddes based upon the work of Lawrence Linesch. So Lawrence Linesch studied healing dynamics across cultures and identified many important dynamics, which I will speak a little bit more about. He removed them from the religious context and taught basic principles. And here was the Reverend, the United Church of Christ Reverend, teaching about these principles with a religious bent. So that tickled me because it was kind of moving back and forth between religious and humanist, and universal principles transcend categories. So anyway, I went to a camp in Northern California for 6 days, and we ate, we worked in the garden, we studied, we meditated, and we laid hands on each other and practiced this technique. One of the things that Linesch taught was how to focus the mind, and that it was important to empty out the chatter and just hold that single pointed kind of focus. And they gave each one of us at the beginning of the retreat a matchstick. And we had to hold this matchstick and meditate on this matchstick. And it was really pretty funny, all the stuff people came up with. It has these auras, it's doing this, it's doing that. But really it was just about focus and letting all these other things that show up and then move along and come back to focus. So I still have that matchstick in a file somewhere. It's pretty funny. But anyway, Linesch, in his book, The Medium, Mystic, and the Physicist, interviewed serious sensitives who had a high frequency of paranormal events in their lives. During the years of Linesch's inquiry, it became clear that the moment when paranormal information was acquired, called telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, etc., the sensitives were reacting to the world as if it were constructed and worked differently than what we normally believe. At these moments, they used a different metaphysical structure of the world than our ordinary, everyday perceived structure. The information was gathered through the senses with a sense of unity. Subject and object were seen as unified, and there was experienced a deep quality of wholeness. So he came to categorize a couple of different types of healing, and he called them type 1 and type 2. And type 1 was this focusing on another, becoming unified in this field, and being grounded in a larger reality. So the healer, the type 1, is a healing process where the healer goes into what is called an altered state of consciousness, but I find it can become very natural. It's not like some big giant other thing you have to do. It's just a perceptual shift, a little one, big one, just a perceptual shift into this other state of consciousness where you see yourself with the other as one entity. There's no attempt to do anything, not to direct it or aim for a specific outcome. There's no attempt for that. They're simply meeting together, focused in a space of love caring caritas on the Healy. And so that bigger space of love is what is the healing aspect, to hold that. It's an essential factor, and this creates what he calls an ideal organismic condition. So the self-repair systems function with greater efficiency. Under these conditions, there can be positive biological changes. So it's really a beautiful open space that is, it's really may thy will be done, but I'm joining with you in this greater will of the universe. And it's rooted in love. But of course, that's not the sentimental love or the complicated, squiggly kinds of different loves that we feel with our people. It's a big one, just a big one. So type 2 healers use intent. And there's actually nothing wrong with this. It's just another band, if you will. And where they, sometimes with visualizations to invite a body, another person's organism to go in a particular direction. Linesch says in type 2, the healer tries to heal. They want and attempt to do so through a healing flow. In both of these scenarios, type 1 and type 2, the person who is the healer has to really aim for the good with this person and want it to happen. But the fundamental difference is that the healer unites with the healee in the universal zone of energy. And so in type 2, there's an attempt to cure. They both have their usefulness in different settings and different practices. So no one is better than the other, but type 1 is generally more powerful. Yeah, it's interesting. Linesch says perhaps the best healers use both, and that's fine. But this bigger place of holding the space for another is holding ourselves in it and holding another there invites the person or organism to move in its highest and best way. So to do this, the healer, we can just start where we are right now here. Everybody's perfect. You've got what it takes. But there's ways we can also refine our energies and do our best to shed the trappings of the ego and the desires of the heart. That's not always easy. Easier said than done. Seems to be a lifelong practice. But if there, within the healer, there's a tangled web of thoughts and emotions, the healing energies from the ultimate or God will not necessarily be as clear and strong. But anyway, that's just, life. We're always moving towards that perfection, if you will, and there's always more room to grow. And we are perfect, but, it's a practice. So, Barbara Brennan, in her book, Light Emerging, discusses the process of healing as a means to shedding the blocks that stop the flow of creative healing energy. So, we just want to get stuff out of the way so we can be as present as possible. She says that the more we open ourselves up to the flow of the universe and the more we can channel that source for the benefit, then the more we can channel it for the benefit of others and ourselves. So I boil this down to type 1, to focus and release. So a most understandable context is the healing context, the counseling or the healing arts, but it could be applied in quite a few more. It's a natural attunement that can come from paying attention to what is presented And words, bodily expressions, energetic transmissions, that's the focus, that paying attention, that dialing in, if you will, just kind of. And the release comes by lifting whoever we're dialed into, whatever we're dialed into a higher frequency. Just simply lifting it. Often in my work, I'm a counselor. I just always hold a basic premise that the other person is whole and has capacity for healing. So I just, and people come to me very broken. I'm a bereavement counselor and I work with death and dying. So they come to me in different states of fragmentation as they're going through their life being shattered and they're trying to figure out the new way. So, but I always just know that they're perfect and they're whole, and whatever's emerging is just part of the process of getting to wherever they're going. And so the holding this idea of wholeness and strength, even when presented with brokenness, is it feels like just holding a very beautiful space for them to move into as they are ready and able. Because I don't want to direct it. I don't want to manipulate where people should be. I just want to invite them to be where they can be. So I described a long story a few times I was back with you about a friend who was bleeding internally, and I did hands-on work with her and tracked the place where she was stuck. And then we released into this really profound realm. And in that realm, the bleeding stopped. So it can be hands-on, it can be listening, it can be energetic. Another example that I really love is AA. When people learn to give things over to the higher power. I just think that's actually, something comes in on the horizon, it's uncomfortable, it's maybe unsolvable. The focus is in crystallizing the belief or thought and then handing it over to God, the universe, to work on it. So with this dynamic and intention, I believe that we actually add an oomph to the universe, a little oomph to this power, to all that's there to move it in the right direction. That with our minds focusing on that and our beings, that we have the power to actually help move things. Again, it's really tricky. We can't direct it, but we can support it and ask for the highest and best. So I found myself thinking last night, there's so much I don't know. I'm like, I'm going to talk with them, and I don't know. There's so much I don't know. But I do know how to work with these forces and to gently hold them and utilize them. But again, it's not controlling. The ability to do this grows stronger as I clear my own self out of old dynamics, let go of outworn stories, continue to call myself in the present moment, and serve love that is at the heart of creation. Of course, I fall short of these things at times, but then I try again and I refocus on that matchstick, but I refocus and drill down deeper and return again and return again. So becoming a clear vessel is a lifelong path. of growing into our center, into the unimpeded expression of our soul. And so that gives us strength and power for this practice, this profound practice. But again, meanwhile, we can do it right where we are. So there's lots going on in our world right now, and many people are feeling out of sorts. The Schumann resonance is spiking, and that's the heartbeat of the earth, and spiking and pausing in certain ways. There's solar flares, there's plastic and choking the plankton. I mean, there's there's all kinds of things that we can tune into that cause us some distress. But, and a feeling that we're not quite right. I've talked to so many people, they're like, I don't feel like myself. So I think it's time that we get out our surfboards and plant our feet firmly on our surfboards and ride the waves. And this focus and release is a thing we can do for ourselves, we can do for others, we can do for our planet, we can do for anything we can imagine that we can bring in and submit, release, raise to the higher forces, to elevate it to the next level of evolution that we are in the midst of right now. So I want to do my part as the pulse that moves the cosmos forward, and do the best to extend the great and power, summon the great love of the universe, and do my best to extend compassion to self and others. We have the ability as light beings. I was glad we did saying that, because we do have this ability. We don't know exactly where we're going, but we can. Our aiming for the good makes a difference. So Reverend Francis Geddes says, God needs our prayers to function in ways that God would not otherwise be able to. And I really like that. So, and St. Augustine says, miracles do not happen in contradiction to nature, but only in contradiction to that which is known to us in nature. So let us imagine broadly and widely and lovingly that we are architects, co-architects of a new creation unfolding. Thank you so much.